Russia has brought war back to Europe, and we must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured. Imagine it, a conflict reaching every home, every workplace. Destruction, mass mobilization, millions displaced, widespread suffering and extreme losses. It is a terrible thought. But if we deliver on our commitments, this is a tragedy we can prevent.
Defense and security chiefs across Europe have issued their strongest warning yet that Vladimir Putin's expansionist ambitions will not stop at Ukraine unless voters are prepared to make sacrifices to guarantee national security.
For 3 decades, many did not have to think about the armed forces. Peace was stable. Conflict was distant. But that is no longer true. I will argue that the situation is more dangerous than I have known during my career, and the price of peace is rising.
Also sounding the alarm was German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, speaking at a party conference in Germany.
Und wenn die Ukraine fällt,
if Ukraine falls, he, Mr. Putin, won't stop, said the German Chancellor. Just as the Sudetenland wasn't enough in 1938, Putin won't stop.
Putin hört nicht auf.
Ukraine's security is our security. NATO's own defences can hold for now. But with its economy dedicated to war, Russia could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years.
What is surprising is how long it's taken Europe and other NATO countries to take the threat seriously. It was at the 2007 Munich conference that Mr. Putin gave a speech in which he blamed the US for sparking a new nuclear arms race and overstepping its national borders.
I disagree that we have a unipolar world. I think we have a multipolar world. Our bases in Eastern Europe are at the request of our new members.
President Putin's comments today were quite provocative. I had hoped we were beyond that kind of rhetoric, but at least he was here and at least we're talking to one another.
7 years later, 2014, came Mr. Putin's annexation of Crimea. It's hard to believe, but up until this point, for 16 years, most NATO members hadn't even been spending 2% of GDP on the alliance's common defence.
Over the past 20 years, Russia has delivered significant defence reform and investment into what were weak and hollowed out armed forces. The Russian armed forces are now more than 1.1 million strong, consuming more than 7% of GDP and around 40% of government spending.
Today, Russia is also growing bolder, said the UK's new MI6 Secret Intelligence Service chief, dedicating her first major speech to the threat.
Alongside the grinding war, Russia is testing us in the grey zone with tactics that are just below the threshold of war. I'm talking about cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, drones buzzing, airports and bases, aggressive activity in our seas above and below the waves, state-sponsored arson and sabotage, propaganda and influence operations that crack open and exploit fractures within societies.
The immediate challenge facing defence chiefs is that Europe's fiscal situation has deteriorated materially. Governments have become significantly more indebted after pandemic-era spending and with unreformed social welfare systems. Meanwhile, populations are ageing, while economic growth slows under the burden of high taxes and intrusive regulation.
We are now operating in a space between peace and war.
Politicians and military leaders in Europe are now explaining the stakes and the risks in an effort to persuade voters to accept much-needed spending reforms.
It's about our defence and resilience being a higher national priority for all of us, an all-in mentality. And that will require people who are not soldiers, sailors or aviators to nevertheless invest their skills and money in innovation and problem-solving on the nation's behalf.
But adding to the urgency is the new Trump national security strategy and its talk of the US and Europe re-establishing, quote, strategic stability with Russia. The document, which bears the imprint of Vice President J.D. Vance, points to less US involvement with Europe, despite NATO countries' commitment to increase defence spending to 5% over the summer.
Listen to the sirens across Ukraine. Look at the bodies pulled from the rubble. Think of the Ukrainians who might go to sleep tonight and not wake up tomorrow. And what is standing between what's happening to them and what could happen to us? Only NATO.